I hadn't actually pulled the trigger yet on leaving my day job. I did that last March, and so it's been a little over a year, and yeah, I've been really enjoying it. So this presentation today is about the roadmap to financial independence and retire early, and I'll share some anecdotes along the way. But at a high level, it's going to give you an understanding of how do you go about drafting a plan, and what are some of the components that you might need to think about if you're going to FIRE at 20, 30, 40, 50, you know, before the traditional like 67. So yeah. So who am I and why should you listen to me? You don't have to listen to me. I'm just a guy. I don't have any books. I'm not really an influencer other than I've been working on my blog, 25 and Free, for, well, the blog started about 3-4 years ago, and this version of the blog, this iteration, started about a year ago. And YouTubing is something I'm really new with. Recording videos is something I'm just starting to figure out. I've been doing it about a month, but I've thrown up some videos. You guys can check those out. I'm kind of plugging myself, but if you like free content, it's there. I just talk about random things related to real estate, financial independence, being retired with a family. My wife Elise is here. We have a 2-year-old daughter, Emma, and she's awesome. So that's something too that, you know, a lot of people think you can't necessarily reach financial independence with a family. Or, you know, I have kids, so I can't retire early. Or I have this or that reason, or this crutch or that crutch, so I can't retire early. It's not necessarily the case. It just means you have to plan accordingly. So what are some stats about me? At 17, I discovered this term financial independence, and that was, I guess, 8.5 or so years ago. And I remember I went to university at Western University and then to Ivy. But at 17, I remember being in my dorm room and just finding guys on the internet who were blogging about this kind of stuff and who retired in their young 30s. And I think at that time, 2009, 2010, I found around Early Retirement Extreme, so ERE, and that was sort of the guy who got me into this. And then later, Mr. Ray Mustache and many other bloggers in the space. And so that's sort of my story. I was really after going to Ivy and like becoming a CEO, just climb that corporate ladder, and I thought that was what was going to make me happy, right? Because I grew up with a family who didn't have a lot, single mom, below poverty line income. I didn't have any of that privilege, so I thought, the secret to being happy must be a lot of money, because everyone I see who's wealthy seems like on the outward appearance they're very, very happy, and they aren't struggling. So that was the goal, right? And then, like I say, 17, 18 years old, I discovered that maybe happiness isn't necessarily linked directly to what you're earning or what your net assets are once you get to a certain point. So there's a certain point where I think the money stops mattering. And so that was the point that I kind of set my laser hairs on and just went hard at. And that's what I was able to achieve through real estate and just hardcore frugality. I worked 3 years at Infotech Research Group after I graduated from Ivy. I got promoted 2 times to manager, so I worked in IT consulting. And that was, actually, to be honest, wasn't that great of a job. I didn't enjoy traveling. I didn't enjoy working long hours. A lot of people say, "Oh, I love that job. I love my job," but I didn't really love my job. It was more of a way to earn an income, to invest in real estate, to reach financial independence. So, yeah, that's me. There's some pictures there of me and my daughter, and that's my wife actually cleaning up a rental property. So our daughter's in a playpen, just chilling. So that's just goes to show the point that even if you have a family, you can still do this kind of stuff. It isn't necessarily a limiter. You just gotta plan accordingly. So you want to build a foundation. You're going to ask yourself, how do I go about getting started with FIRE? And the first thing I do is build a foundation like you would when you're building a house or building a structure. And so one of the first things you got to do is track your spending by, create a budget, track all of your income that's coming in. If you have a side hustle, track that income too. You have a day job, track all of that income, and then figure out what you're saving or what you, I guess, are spending. If you're in the negative, you have a negative savings rate. But hopefully most people here are saving at least something or striving to save something. So that's when you get kind of your savings rate, right? Your percentage of the income that you're saving. That's a good place to start. And then the other thing too is your scoreboard to reaching FIRE is essentially, I actually in my room built a chart and mapped out my journey to FIRE, and every month I would kind of put a dot on the map as I was tracking towards FIRE. So that's something I recommend to do. Track your net worth, add up all your assets, add up all your liabilities, take your assets minus your liabilities, that gives you your net worth. Your net worth is kind of like your scorecard to determine how well you're actually progressing towards the freedom target. And I like this quote here. It's not about what you make, it's about what you can save. So there are a lot of people I know. I went to Ivy, so I met a lot of privileged people there. And a lot of them have, $200,000 incomes, really, really high incomes, right? And they have no net worth. A lot of these people drive fancy cars, have nice, pads, and live in Toronto or New York, and they have no net worth. And so it doesn't necessarily matter if you're making 250 grand a year, if you're spending 250 grand a year, and that job ends in a recession or something happens, you have nothing to fall back on. You're not financially independent. You're not free. You're sort of a wage slave still. So, yeah, I mean that's the key piece there. And you're gonna ask yourself, so what is that number you're looking for, and how do you know when you're gonna be fired? What is that goal that I'm working towards? And it's pretty simple. Essentially, just map out what your future budget is going to be. What are you going to be spending every month in financial independence? And you multiply that by 25. So that's where the blog name 25 and 3 came from. It also coincidentally happened to work well with the fact that I was 25 when I started the blog, or the second iteration of it. So yeah, that gives you your freedom number. So if you're spending $25,000 a year to live right now, you're a little over $2,000 a month to sustain your life with rent and all your expenses, then you need about $625,000 to FIRE based on the 4% safe withdrawal rate. And that would mean basically you could withdraw from that just the interest and leave in inflation each year and live on that for the rest of your life for infinity and never draw on the principal ever. So that's sort of an example number. If you spend more, you have to adjust your number accordingly. For me, that was actually my original number, the $625,000. So that's an anecdote that I strive towards. And now today, my net worth today is well over double that. So I could spend a lot more, but I like being frugal. So you're gonna say, okay, I did all that and I'm spending $80,000 a year or something. I don't like the number that I have here. And that's what most people, the average Canadian, spending say $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, the average dual income family. And they might not like the number they see. They might see 2 million and think that's way too high. I'm never gonna be able to reach that until I'm 65. And that's true if you limit your mindset to, I can't change this number, I can't change my spending, I can't change my lifestyle. And so I'm just gonna hit up 3 points. One, change your lifestyle. You're in control, and that's the thing I love about controlling your spending is that you're in control. You can control what you spend on. You can control the kind of deals you get on the materials. If you're buying things for renovations, if you're going on a trip, you can go find a deal on that trip. So being able to change your mindset to prioritize freedom over consumption and luxury. That was a big thing for me that kind of was more of a psychological thing. And another key point is dollar utility. You want to improve your dollar utility and make your dollars stretch. You want to make them go as far as you possibly can. And that's something that I'm really good at. There's some blog posts I've written and some YouTube videos you guys can see, but I'm pretty good at finding deals on everything. My cell phone's like $25 a month for unlimited. For everything I need. Insurance, I pay like $60-something a month for insurance. Most people pay a couple hundred. There's tips there. You can trade in and learn to house hack, rent hack. There's a way to basically hack every line of your expense items on your budget. So there's always a way to improve, become more efficient. And my argument would be it's easier in the beginning to cut your spending than it is to earn more money. It's hard to go to your boss and say, give me 50 grand more a year. It's pretty easy to look at your budget and say I can shave 10 or 20 grand off here by making a couple conscious decisions. I also happen to be able to increase my income a lot through real estate, so that was part of how I was able to retire so early too, is I kept my spending relatively low and I increased my income through side hustles like real estate. This is kind of a cool topic it's sort of an idea. For me, it was really keeping me motivated. A dream board or a picture map or a picture board they call them are really, really cool things you can do. You can draw out all the pictures of things you want to do. So if it's financial independence, maybe you put a big picture of that and draw out what those things are and create sub goals. And break it down to say, I want to get to this goal, and if I get to this goal, then there'll be this reward. Or if, I want to get to 2 rental properties or my first rental property, you might put things on a board. And psychologically speaking, if you look at the data, people tend to work 2 to 3 times harder for something if it's visual. So that's why in a lot of management type positions, when we would do scrum sessions, we would often put pictures of the things we were working towards. And that actually led to greater productivity and we reached our goals that much faster. So not only will it keep you and remind you to keep on track, but it'll also motivate you to work harder and to reach your goals. So that's something cool you can do when you're moving towards FIRE. And if you don't like how long it can take, same thing, you can control you only have 3 things you can control, right? There's only 3 levers to control your financial future. You can either spend less, you can basically earn more, or you can maximize your returns on the money you have invested. So those are the only 3 things you can really do at a high level to reach FIRE faster, to become wealthier. So that's sort of on my blog, that's my catchphrase is spend less, earn more, and maximize returns. Those are the 3 things I like to talk about. Everything can be encompassed within those 3 things to build the ultimate lifestyle. So I threw up some ideas here if you guys are interested. You pick up a side hustle. A lot of people think that they just have the day job, they can't increase their income. but that's not necessarily true. You could buy a rental property. You know how to play piano, you could teach piano on the side. If you game, you could stream on Twitch while you game. There are things you can do to monetize every aspect of your life if you want to. And yeah, so those are some things that I talk about on my YouTube, and we're going to talk about here at London on Fire. Those are topics that are top of mind, right? How do you build a kick-ass investment portfolio to maximize return on investment? In the beginning, it's not as important because you don't have as much invested, but as you start to build that nest egg, what you're investing in becomes more important than what you're saving. In the beginning, it's the inverse is true. What you're investing in doesn't matter at all. It's about what you're spending and saving ultimately. So that's the first, say, I don't know, 30% or 40% of the growth curve is just about what you're saving. So being able to earn enough that you can save and spend so little that you can save. What are the pillars to a good financial plan? So when I talk about building a financial plan, what are the things you got to think about? So one is cash flow management. A lot of people don't run their personal lives like a business. And that's something that was a tip was given to me when we got married a few years back. I remember someone at my wedding giving me advice about just make sure I think, what did he say to me? He said, only live on half, he's like, take your two incomes, only live on half of the lower of the two incomes and save all the rest. He's like, and you'll be a really rich man. And so that was something that kind of stuck with me, that you need to run your personal life like a business and don't necessarily think of, if you're a couple, for instance, you could spend one person's salary and save the entire other person's salary as an example. So that would give you a 50% savings rate, which is pretty aggressive in our Canadian culture today. Other thing to think about is under cash flow management, liquidity management. A lot of us, I remember when I took on, after I quit my job in March, I took on 4 or 5 rental projects at once, and there were huge renovations happening, and there was I was probably going through $50,000 a month in receipts, just buying things at Home Depot, Rona, paying trades, and that cash burn I didn't plan for. So that was something that, even though I'm preaching cash flow management, that was something that I failed at, and I was almost insolvent going through that process. I had to borrow money from certain people just to survive through that growth or expansion piece. So when you're building a business or building your personal life towards financial independence, cash flow management is so huge. Liquidity management is so huge. Watch and make sure you have enough liquidity. Emergency funds are pretty key here too. Risk management is a portion that it's a pillar, I think, of financial independence that we often, on the FI community boards and when you're reading a lot of the blogs, this piece is sort of ignored a lot of times. Risk management is something that's pretty important. It's the idea essentially risk is going to happen in your life, right? Every time you get in your car, there's a risk. You buy a rental property, it's a risk. Anything you do, there's risk. And so there's kind of 4 ways to deal with risk. You can just accept risk. You can kind of self-insure. You can transfer risk by buying insurance to protect against that risk. You can mitigate that risk. So if you're going to have risky sex, you could wear a condom. That's a way to reduce risk. So there's things you can do to reduce risk. So yeah, and then the last thing is risk avoidance. So you can just choose not to go to the club and not get in your car and don't drive anywhere and just avoid all risk altogether. That's not really a good way to live your life, I think. It's good to have a little bit of risk in life. With a bit of risk comes quite a bit of reward often. So retirement planning is another key piece, obviously. If you're looking to retire early, then retirement planning will be a very important part of your plan. The 4th pillar is investment planning and tax efficiency. So you want to make sure that, this is talking about maximizing returns, essentially. You want to make sure that you're maximizing your return on investment, especially as that portfolio grows. Estate planning is another one that often is missed in the FIRE community. A lot of us don't plan for, when we're going to die, or if something happens to us and we become, whatever, right? So just having a death plan, essentially, in place. If I die tomorrow, will my employees still have a job? Maybe if you run a business and you have 10 employees, you're a small business owner, will my employees all be screwed if I die tomorrow? Do I have plans in place for that? So there's a lot of things you can think of, even if you don't even think of, your own family. You could think of if you have a business or someone that relies on you in some way. This is a key point about being fluid and adaptive. You want to make sure that at the end of the day, your plan isn't just something that you write once, you put in a closet, and you stick to it. It's an adaptive, fluid thing that's always changing. You might decide to move, you might decide to get married, you might have kids, anything can happen in your life, and as things change, so does your financial plan. It has to adapt and grow with you. So it's sort of a fluid thing that I would say maybe you would look at quarterly or at least annually and say, hey, am I on track to meet my goals? What are my goals? That sort of stuff. So tweak things. And the big point here, continually improve your knowledge. Learn until it burns, and then read some more. That's a big point that even like myself, I've read a ton on real estate and financial independence, and I've read pretty much all the major blogs out there. And that doesn't mean I still don't learn new things all the time. I'll talk to someone and learn something new, or I'll often come across an article and see a point I hadn't thought of in 3-4 years. And sometimes that brings something back for me that changes my perspective in a way that I pivot and improve my financial plan, my financial aspect, or even like my lifestyle. So that's not really key. I think all of us who are successful in life, I guess, we're all continual learners. So that's something to be always cognizant of. You never can learn enough, always trying to learn more. And this is, I like this picture here. You see like there's an old guy crawling towards the finish line, and then there's this kid here, looks like he's just almost at the finish line there, just on his knees. And that's sort of, to summarize the feel of, I remember when I was grinding probably 2 years ago. Before I had the community that exists in London on Fire, I didn't have a lot of friends who were attracted towards this goal. And I was just this guy that was working I'd go into work at 8:15 in the morning, get out by 6, go to my rental property and work till 2 in the morning, and do that every single day, right? So I was just grinding by myself. It felt like there was a few people on the internet that I could kind of, at the end of the day, look at and read their articles and feel a connection with and talk to people online. But I didn't have any real community. And so something really big to sticking to your plan is go out to like some networking events. If you want to reach FIRE, come out to London on Fire. Like, you guys are obviously here, so you made the right choice if you're interested. There's that cross-pollination that occurs when people get together and share information. I think it's more valuable than anything you can read in a book, right? Anything you can read online. It adds that second layer. I'm not saying you don't need to read books and read stuff online, but it just solidifies and really anchors everything you're learning. So come out and network, because that's really going to help you get to your goal that much faster. It's going to help you stick to your plan, and it's going to make this grinding. You basically have to grind some more. And I remember like 2 years ago being at that point where just grinding every day, and I was like, is it worth it? Like, I'm losing my 20s. This feels terrible. And, I probably, in hindsight, did it a little too fast. Like, I probably could have slowed down and retired at like 27 and enjoyed my life a little more and gone on some more trips. But, I wanted this financial independence, this freedom to not be worried about, where a meal was going to come from, more than I wanted to eat. Like, I could go the whole day with I could fast the whole day. That's how dedicated I was. Like, I just wouldn't eat. I would just go all day and then just eat a huge meal, right, and fast again for another day. Like, that was how bad I wanted this, right? It was more than I wanted anything. And so that when you have that goal in mind, you prioritize it, you make it that one thing you want more than anything, it actually becomes a lot easier to achieve that goal, because it feels like you're doing something with a why, with purpose. So, I guess the whole point of this slide is just that it's not going to be easy. No one reaches financial independence just by accident, unless they win the lottery, and I don't know how replicatable that is, but if you want to do it in a replicatable, random number generator kind of way, then it's going to be a bit of a grind, but we're all here for you, right? Like, I'm here to talk with you guys. Matt, Kellen, Dylan, all of us here in London on Fire are here to support each other, right? And that's sort of why I started the blog. That's why I'm doing YouTube, and helping educate other people to get them to financial independence, because it's pretty boring on a Tuesday afternoon if you don't have any friends who are also retired. So that's sort of my goal, is build a community in London here where we're all sort of retired early, and we can all sort of have that huge group of people. So that's sort of my motivations. I don't have any. I don't monetize anything. I make nothing from YouTube right now, nothing from my blog. I have nothing to sell you, no books. But I want to tell you that in the end, it's worth it. What's more valuable than your freedom? And that was sort of the proposition that at 17 resonated so well, that, I'd rather have 12 hours free to just go for a hike or do whatever and hang out with my daughter and my wife on a Monday afternoon when the sun comes out, than have a Ferrari or a nice house or a Lambo, right, that I can drive for 20 minutes and then have to go back to working just to afford it. So my sort of sell or ask is, ask yourself, what's more valuable than your freedom? Is there something out there that's more valuable than your freedom? And if so, then I guess make that a priority. But so your freedom's only 25 times away. Spend less, earn more, and maximize your returns.